welcome to episode 4 of the Rebel and Reawaken podcast. We are rebelling against just surviving and reawakening our minds, bodies, and souls to a life we love by reigniting our passion and zeal for life. So this episode, like last week, is for anyone in early recovery who has found themselves at the foot of relapse again or for the first time. Last week we talked about rebounding from relapse, and today I want to introduce you to my best friend, my soul sister, my sister from another mister, Tiffany. We have been friends for 20 years. Yeah, we're that old.
Yeah.
It's sad. We have been through enough life for 3 lifetimes together. We have fought, made up, stood by each other through thick and thin. We've both struggled with substance use disorders, and alas, we are both on the other side. Yay! So I have seen Tiffany fall prey to so many things, and her story is like so many of ours, and when life takes a hold of us and throws us to the wolves, we cope the best way that we know how. I am so proud of Tiffany because over the past few months, she has taken proactive steps to truly begin to heal herself and learn new healthy ways and develop some lasting coping mechanisms that don't involve turning to drugs and alcohol. And that's why I thought she was the perfect person to talk to us about rebounding from relapse. So welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Yay! And for the record, this is the first time I've actually seen your face in about 10 years.
Yeah, I know. Awesome way to break the ice.
She always hides behind, like, she won't turn on her camera, or she'll just, like, call me with the audio.
Whatever. No.
All right. Okay, so we are going to start with some rapid fire questions so that the listeners can get to know you, because I already know you. Okay, so just answer the first thing that comes to the top of your head. All right, so work or play?
Work or play? I feel like I would want an equal balance of both.
Cheater.
I don't know, I'm just saying.
Okay, money or happiness?
Definitely happiness.
Yes. Summer or winter?
Oh, yeah. See, I'm from Michigan, so definitely winter.
Yep. Okay, morning or evening?
Oh, I guess it depends on the season. Like, I love evening for the summer nights, but I love morning, like in the fall time.
Yeah. Yep. I remember us drinking coffee in the mornings in the fall.
Best.
That was always the best.
Oh, always the best.
Okay, beach or lake?
Oh, definitely the lake.
The lake.
Yeah, like Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
We were
that's almost
around Lake Michigan. That's a
I know,
beach
but
too, though.
I know. It's almost an ocean. It's so freaking huge.
Yeah, it is pretty big. So I guess beach lake.
A lake with a beach on it.
Yeah.
Okay, flying or driving?
Flying.
City or country?
City. Definitely.
You're kind of out in the, like, mountain country now, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Population 15. Yep.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's, yeah.
No, thank you. Okay, movies or TV shows?
TV shows.
Me too. I like to binge watch. Okay. Online shopping or in-store shopping?
I don't know. I like doing both. Sometimes it gets hot in the store, so I guess online.
Yes. Okay, last one. And I know the answer already. It was the first thing we talked about when we got on the phone. Apple or Android?
Oh, duh. Apple. Of course, Apple.
She gives me crap all the time for having an Android phone.
You give it back, because she used to, just so you know, everybody who's listening, she used to have an Apple and would upgrade to an Apple all the time.
I've crossed over. Okay, so let's hop in. Tell us a little bit about your journey to sobriety. So, like, when did you first start using, using drugs or alcohol as a coping mechanism versus, like, just having fun with it? And when did you know you had a problem, and why did you stop? That's a lot, so if you forget something, I'll just remind you.
Yeah, when do you want me to, like, go all the way back to, like, the first time I moved to Lubbock, or...
Yeah, I mean, because
that was more recreation. I feel like that was more recreational. Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah. For you, like, I feel like,
part,
for you, that initial was recreational. For me, it spiraled out of control.
Yeah. But it was the way we met, so I have no regrets. I can't regret that, you know.
Yeah. So when did that transition? Because you took a break.
See, that was just it, though. Like, I never was, like, a big drinker. Even with Jasmine's dad, and then him and I didn't work out. Remember, I lost all that weight, and then we were having fun. We would go out and drink and stuff like that. And it was just more social. And then I met Kellen's dad, and I think because he always wanted to drink, I didn't really have a great passion for it. Of course, that was when we were, you know, me, you, Russ, and him were all hanging out and doing other things. So, I guess in a way I've always had an addictive personality. It just depends on what the drug was. And, you know, if it was there, sure, we had fun. We always had a lot of fun. Then about 2010, we moved from Texas to Michigan. And even then, like, I mean, my dad, my family, there was always alcohol everywhere. But because Brandon was always a big drinker, it just never really turned me on. And I've never been a really big drinker. And then in 2014, him and I split up. And I was, you know, trying to get my bearings with the kids and I by myself in our own apartment and stuff like that. And I met another guy. I started dating a guy I met at a place I was working at. And he was a really big drinker. And I don't know if it was just because it was something new or he was somebody new. I started to drink with him, which kind of led... We would have fun, but then it started kind of getting out of control, like more frequent. And so, long story short, him and I didn't work out, but, you know, him and I didn't work out, but then I'm kind of left with like this want, or in my experience, need to drink to cope, because it did. And so, I started drinking wine pretty heavily. And then from there, went to like really, really, really shitty. Wait, can I swear on here?
Yes, it's fine.
Sorry. Really, really, like crappy liquors, but that were strong and got the job done. So, and oh gosh, by then it was about 2015. It was like fall of 2015. The kids and I moved out of my apartment and into my dad's house. We were living with him and my stepmom for a while, just to save up for a house. And I noticed I knew I could drink in my dad's house because he never thought I had an issue with it. Our family always drank, not heavily, but I mean, it was just a common thing. Like in the household, they would get home from work. We would all get home from work and have a beer, make a drink, that kind of thing. But I noticed that I started to hide it because I was drinking so much. And I was always a happy drunk until something was said and a flip would get switched. So I don't remember it, but I just knew something bad had happened the night before. My dad and I had gotten into a fight, and that was when he realized that maybe I was drinking too much and stuff like that, and suggested that I, go to an AA meeting, that kind of thing. And so by this time, it is winter of 2015, starting to be. And I was going to AA meetings, but I was like the type of person that, okay, well, I wasn't getting in trouble legal-wise yet. So I was going to AA meetings with the thought in the back of my head that, okay, I'm coming here, I'm doing my part, but I'm going to stop and get some alcohol still on the way home, And so I would do that until it kind of just got out of control. My my dad and I got into a really big fight. It ended in a physical altercation, to where the kids and I left, and I was staying with friends, while trying to find a place for the kids and I. And my drinking, of course, got more and more, so much to the point to where I felt just invincible, that I could drive.
Sure.
And I did. I drove drunk quite a bit. I mean, I was the type of person that was getting out of work and going to the liquor store right around the corner from it just to get like a pint or even a half pint, and I would start on that. And stupidly, I would go and pick up my kids from like their after school care, and we would go home and I would drink more until I had to be to work the next day. And that was a pretty consistent thing until I got pulled over and I got my first DWI. By now it's fall. No, not fall. We're going into spring of 2016. So my first DWI I got was in March. The second one I got, because I didn't care, was 2 weeks later. And then the third one I got was about 3 weeks later. And from there, I was in jail for 30 days. Got out. So that was a stipulation if I got caught drinking again, or got pulled over, anything. I had to go back to jail for the rest of, because I took 30 days out of 365, so I would have to finish that. So 330, whatever was left in that year. So, I was court mandated to 2 years probation. I had to do counseling, all that good stuff. And something I'm learning as I'm going through recovery again, and I feel like a lot of people do this, is I think everybody will get in trouble with the law once, go through it because they're having to go through it, but not really take it seriously. And I didn't. I would still drink, but I wouldn't drink as much as I would. By now the kids are living with their dads. And so I was staying with an old coworker of mine, and, wine was always there. Parties were always happening. So I was still drinking quite a bit, but not nearly as much as I was. And then I finished everything, and then I was doing really good for a while because I was working. I got a better job, and I was just consistently busy working 24/7 all the time. And then where I was working at, it was a salon. It ended up going out of business. So that kind of really put me back into thinking I needed alcohol to cope with that kind of stuff. And so I did, but then I found another job, which I loved working at. I loved that job until, I kind of had a little bit of a mental breakdown just because of the amount of hours. I was working 80-hour weeks. It was nuts. And I worked there for a while, and I got to a point to where I could only, I was disciplined enough to where I would only drink if it was my day off. I wasn't drinking at night, that kind of, before I had to be to work and stuff, because I was taking care of people and, sweating my ass off all the time. So I didn't want to be doing that and hungover, you know what I mean? So, so November of last year, I had a pretty bad mental breakdown there, and I just needed some time off. And that was when I started drinking heavily again, and then decided to make the move down south, which, oh my God, I had been back and forth about that. I don't even know how many times. So the fact that I did it is still very shocking to me. But and when I got here, I'd stayed sober for a good month. But I also noticed that when I got here, it just sucks being 38 and having to live with your mom. So I started getting alcohol whenever we would make trips to the store, and I would drink it in my room. And I don't know what her and I got into a fight. Oh, we got into a fight because alcohol, in the sense, would dull down my opinions to her, because anytime I had an opinion or wanted to speak what I am learning is my authentic truth, she would get mad and turn it around on her and make herself the victim, and she would be in the wrong, but somehow would make me apologize for it. And so alcohol helped me be okay with that, you know? But then, you know, there's that part of alcohol, but then there's the part that's like, it's like being punched in the face, and you can only be punched and just stand there and take it, hit after hit after hit. And so a flip would switch again, and I would go off. I mean, I wouldn't yell at her, but I would just, the way she was trying to tell me how to parent my daughter, who I've done that before, I know how to take care of children, was really, really frustrating. And I kept trying to, so I told her, I said, you're not her mom, because she is. And so she sent me down to my grandma's house, because she has a house on the property, and I stayed there. And while I stayed there, she went to my room, found my alcohol, and said, you're either going to, you need to find a recovery place that's inpatient, or you're out. And I said, well, I'm not leaving Jasmine behind. So I did find I found an outpatient recovery place, the middle of April. And I actually was really happy to, because while I'm here and I'm wanting to work and all of that stuff, she was also encouraging me and saying, please don't, I need you to help take care of me, I need you to help do all this. No, she really didn't. I don't want to go down that part, but I wanted to be productive. That's how it helped me, because idle hands, what is that saying? Like, idle hands are the devil at work?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I just wanted to get back into work and be productive, have my own money, get my own place. I don't want to be here, I don't even want to be in this state. And I'm sorry for people who love New Mexico. I don't know why. Really. I go to Texas
Agreed.
in a heartbeat. The whole damn state has the same area code.
Yeah, weird. I know. I drive through New Mexico as fast as I can, and I'm like, you pee before we leave Texas, and you don't pee until we get to Colorado.
Right. I don't blame you. Ugh. I'm just not impressed. So, I found an outpatient recovery place. I go 3 times a week to my group therapies, and then I do two different one-on-ones with 2 different therapists throughout the week as well. So I've got like 5 different therapy appointments from Monday through Friday. And I love it. I've made a lot of great friends so far. I've made a lot of great contacts. There's so many resources. There's so many things I can do. And I do get worried about when it's over. But right now I'm just I have to focus on, just taking it one day at a time. So, yeah.
Yep. I'm so proud of you. As you were saying different parts of that, I was like, yep, remember that. Yep, remember that. And I
remember calling you. When my lawyer told me that I was probably going to do jail time after my second DWI, and you were just crying.
Yep.
That's sad.
Yeah.
with that.
It was hard for me because I was so far away. Like, I couldn't help. I think sometimes it was probably for the best because I love you so much. I probably would have enabled you in some way.
I know. Ditto.
Yeah. So it's probably for the best, but it was so hard. It was so hard to watch from a distance. It's hard for all of my friends who are still like suffering. It's hard for me to sit back and watch, but I'm so happy you're on this side. It makes me so happy.
Too. Yeah. Today, well, in like an hour, I will be 65 days sober.
Woohoo!
I know.
Yes. That's so exciting.
It is.
It's huge. It's like, don't stop celebrating like the wins because it's a huge deal.
It is.
So that kind of leads me into my next question, and I'll tie it in when you answer. But so you explained in your story where you relapsed initially after you got out of jail, you just started drinking again, and it's been pretty much one long relapse until now, aside from when you got to New Mexico. So the question is, how many times have you relapsed in the past? So,
I mean, I guess I just relapsed the one time because I could socially drink. I wasn't drinking to get drunk. I could have a drink with some friends and be okay. When I started drinking heavily again was when everything kind of went bad at the nursing home I was working with. So this past November, that's when I started drinking heavily again because I wasn't doing anything. I was just waiting to hear back if, I was going to be able to come back. Of course, the HR person that they had there wasn't good. So technically, I could have come back because it was like a whole mental health reason, which I didn't find out about any of that until after we moved here. So, I guess initially the relapse was right after, I got out of jail. And not to make excuses, I wasn't drinking heavily. It was just birthdays, going out with girlfriends or anything like that. It didn't get super heavy to where I was codependent on it for depression or just to cope until this past November.
Yeah. That's how I always remember you. It was like you'd have a drink or two when we went out, for special occasions or if we were watching the football game. But it wasn't it wasn't ever like out of control, balls to the wall,
right,
overpowering your life. So when you called me and told me that you had gotten a DWI and then another one and then another one, I was like, what's happening? Like, when did this switch flip? Because she's never had a problem with booze. So it was hard for me to wrap my head around it. As someone, I was like, I know this girl like the back of my hand, and like, what is happening that I missed this? Like, I missed the signs. Yeah, because it went from, I knew you were having issues with like your dad, your ex, whatever, and then all of a sudden, it was just this spiral, and I was like, what the heck? So,
definitely had quite the snowball effect for sure.
Yeah.
It was bad.
So let's see. What would you say was the biggest contributing factor to your relapse into heavy drinking again? Was it like stress? Your fear of failure? Yeah, stress. That's what it sounds like to me.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what has made this time so different?
Jasmine, you, my grandma, here on the property, she does so much for me. And it just, my brother in Michigan, the support of all of these people. That's kind of like the really cool thing. It's very bittersweet, because I know there's that saying, misery loves company, but when you get in a room with a bunch of people that are all going through the same thing, but you don't know them, we're from different walks of life, that kind of thing, but you have that one thing in common, it instantly bonds you with these people. And so you can talk to them as if you've known them your entire life. They can, we can call each other or text each other any hour and of the day or night, whatever, and it's okay, because we know that feeling of being triggered, and the last thing we want is that trigger to evolve into a craving, and then all of a sudden we're looking, and so the people, definitely, like I said, you, Jasmine, certain family members, but definitely the people that I've met just in recovery alone have been, really great.
Yeah, I think that's important, because when you get sober from any substance or any behavior, like, you've spent so long isolating yourself and like hiding your drinking, hiding your using, and only hanging out with people who are drinking or using. And then you get sober and you're all of a sudden alone. And like you said, like, you have family or friends, but unless they've been there,
exactly,
it's hard, to make that connection. And so I think it's really important for people.
They can support you and love you, and it's great, but they don't know. So there's always that bit of judgment.
Yeah. And I feel like we as addicts, like, we are hyper aware of people's opinions of us.
Oh,
and
sure.
Yeah. And so, like, any little bit of, it may not even be judgment, but like a side-eye glance at us and we're like, oh, they're judging me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point, like, to share with people who are new in recovery, is like, get a community of other people in recovery that you can reach out to, because it's totally different. It's a game changer when you have people who understand where you've been, that you can talk to.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was going to say, you talked about how the first time you went into like counseling and all the, like, treatment or whatever that court mandated, how that's, and I went through the same thing. Like, it was court mandated. I felt like I didn't have a choice, like, didn't necessarily want to be there. And so, but this time, I feel like you made the choice, and you did it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to doing it because you were forced to. And I think that's important.
Yeah. No, because I easily could have left here. Easily.
Yeah. You could have gone back to Michigan or anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Easily. But I didn't want to leave my daughter again. And I was just thinking, I will be damned if I'm going to let anybody tell me, I told you so. And I know that's a dangerous thing to keep in mind for sobriety. So it's on the, back burner. It's just, it's minimal, because that's not why I want to get sober. I'm 38. It's not cute anymore to wake up and be hungover and call into work, or, promises that you made when you were drunk you can't follow through with the next day, or even the next 2 or 3 days, because you feel like absolute crap because you're not 21 anymore. So health was a huge toll. The fact that alcoholism runs heavy on both sides of my family. I just lost my uncle Robert to cirrhosis in March. He was the youngest of 4 brothers on my dad's side. He was like early 50s. My dad's other brother, just died a couple of years ago, 3 years ago maybe, about the same time, from just so many complications from drug use and alcohol use as a kid, or even as a young adult, hell, even as an older adult. So it's all fun and games until the doctor tells you there's nothing we can do for you anymore. And it's easy to just drink or use and say, that's not going to happen to me. You know, it's that whole invincible feeling. And there were so many times where it was just like, I would look at the bottle I was drinking and I would just be like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I don't want this. But I would still just drink it.
Yeah.
And now it's just, I'm at a point where it's like, that is an object that can no longer control me. Hopefully. So far, so good.
Yeah. So what resources and tools, I know the answer to this because we already talked about it, but what resources and tools have you learned this time that are helping you stay sober?
Well, because of my living situation, and I'm still having to be kind of a yes ma'am type of person, you know. So I do a lot of journaling, a lot. I think I'm on like my third journal. I do a lot of tactical breathing. Anytime I feel like I'm getting anxious, I do like an exercise I was taught in recovery. It's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you know what that is.
I do, but
yeah, it's that helps a lot. Just picking up the phone, talking to people. Sometimes sleep helps too. Just going to sleep.
For sure. It just it relaxes your body and removes you from that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is super important. That's something I work on with my clients, is like recognizing the trigger, because we run on autopilot for so long that we don't even realize that your mom raising her voice and, you know, like one level could be a huge trigger, because normally getting in a fight with your parents, you go drink. So she may, you know, scream because she sees a spider, but that could immediately like trigger your brain to want to drink. And before you know it, you're sweating and you're like, you know, your palms are sweating and you're looking for the bottle and you're like, okay, I'm going to just jump in the car and go get something to drink.
Yeah.
But like being aware of your triggers and then having an escape plan is super important, of like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or the like go take a nap, or okay, now let me go journal about this. Let me go write down, like get out what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. Those are super important. You have to pivot yourself away from the trigger as soon as possible. And the longer you do that, the more your brain, you rewire your brain and create new neural pathways in your brain. When X happens, I no longer do Z, I do A.
Right.
So yeah, I'm so proud of you. Yeah. I keep saying that, but I am.
Well, thank you. I'm a little proud too.
Yeah, well, you should be. Yeah. What mindset shifts have you had that are keeping you motivated to stay sober this time? We've touched on a few, but...
Mindset?
Mm-hmm.
I think just the fact that I think just the fact that I want to get my own place, that, you know, I need to do this. I have this chance to do this with my daughter, and it's just, you know, been able to keep me going. That's been a huge one.
Because I know when you were in Michigan, there were times when you were really hopeless about that. Like,
Oh,
there
big
were a
time.
few times when you were like, well, I'm never going to get my kids back. So there's no point. And so to hear you talk about, like, starting a new life with Jasmine and, like, being there for her is huge. That's a huge mindset shift that I've seen. And it gives me hope, because I think that's what people need in early recovery is hope for the future. Mm-hmm. You've got to get out of that, like, gloom and doom mindset and start making plans.
Right. I agree.
All right. Let's see. How are you dealing with stressors now? So I know you're still living with your mom. Old dogs don't learn new tricks, so I'm sure she's still her lovely.
You know.
I know your mom. I love your mom, but she's not my mom, so.
You know, it's interesting. I journal about a lot of things. Like I said, I journal a lot. I know I can go down to my grandma's anytime. I know I can vent to my daughter. I don't like to, though, because I don't want to be that type of parent that brings all of their problems to their kids. Growing up, that's why I wanted to live with my dad, is because I felt like my mom involved my sister and I way too much. And so it didn't feel like a safe environment. And as a child, you should feel safety. So living with my dad, I always felt that if they had money problems, we never knew about it. If they were struggling with anything, we never knew about it. If they were arguing, we definitely never saw it. You know, my sister and I were always seeing that with my mom.
Yeah.
And so, she knows what goes on here. She's not stupid at all. She sees, and it sucks that it's taken me screwing up to where she moved down south and had to experience it that way. But you know, everything happens for a reason. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really had a ton of triggers. I've maybe had a few since I started recovery. And yeah, I just have to wait. If I don't journal, like say I'm sitting outside in the sun, I just wait for it to pass. You know, the only way to go through something is to actually go through it. There's no way around it. You know, there's no secret way. So just the breathing, the journaling, and knowing that this isn't going to be forever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we, when I interviewed the last girl, Claire, she talked about the same thing about just sitting with it. And I think when you're early in recovery, it is so hard to just sit with your emotions, like, because that's not what we do. We numb it, we drown it in booze, we run, hide, you know, everything to get away from the emotions. And yeah, so just sitting through it, and then having that, like, that moment after the moment has passed of like, I did it. Okay, so I think sometimes there's a misconception that when we get sober, everything just like magically gets better. And there's a thing called pink cloud theory where like, yep, people in like who have gone through any sort of recovery or AA, they know about pink cloud theory. But it's a short time right after you first detox or stop drinking where you are seeing everything through rose-colored glasses and you think, oh, I can do this forever. You know, there's no problem. I'm perfect. Life is going to be great. And then your first big problem hits you and
You
it
hit a
all
wall.
comes, yeah, you hit a wall. And a lot of people end up relapsing after that.
I think that's also called like the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
It lasts like maybe 15 to 45 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that's, just from talking to you, I think that's what happened your first go round was like, or maybe it was just, I don't know. Like you were just like, I'm doing this because I have to. But have you experienced that this time? Do you think?
No, I'm more in this frame of mind now that at the moment I know that if I have a drink, it's not going to just be one. It'll be until I can get drunk or pass out. So I know at this point in my life, I'm always going to be in recovery. Even once I'm done with the program I'm doing and, you know, like even with the aftercare after it's done, I know you're always in recovery. There's no time in your life where you can say, I'm cured. I'm not an addict anymore. Unfortunately, and it's taken a lot to realize it's not a stigma, it's a disease. You know, unfortunately, because of it, you're always going to be in recovery. There's always going to be temptations and tests and just having to get through it.
Yeah.
So, no, it's different this time. Very different.
I can tell. I can see it. I can feel it. And it is totally different. And that's what I talked about on the last episode was like, it's so cool when I see it click for my friends. Like I see that flip switch and they understand and they're in it for the long haul, and it makes me super happy. I'm so proud of you. I keep saying that I'm a broken record, but I really am.
No, I'm proud of you too, though.
I know. Done. Thank you. I know the other day, Joseph, my friend, he said something about it's so cool, like how you give back and you do all this stuff. And he said, I hope that, one day I can do that. And I was like, I'm almost 17 years in. Like, you are a few months in. Like, give yourself some grace. You'll get there. Right. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's taken a lot of time to be able to give back and to do for others the way that I do without, because I don't have to pour as much into myself on a daily basis. And this is actually more rewarding and a reward to myself from just years of recovery. And so I told him, I was like, just give yourself some grace. You'll get there. Like,
exactly.
When you're early in recovery, your focus should be on you.
Yeah.
And as you get stronger, you can branch out to other people.
Yeah.
Okay, so just like we were saying, I know it can be hard when you're in early recovery to make plans for the future or to see past the immediate moment because you're really just focusing on staying sober the here and now. But do you have any plans, hopes, dreams that you want to see come to fruition?
I mean, just the regular hopes and plans, I guess, for the future would be my own place, good job. I'd love to make it back to Michigan just to see it. But that's as far as I'm looking right now. I don't want to get too, I don't know, ambitious. Is that the right word? I don't want to, just got to take one step at a time.
Yep. And that's super important when you're early in recovery, because then if you start to get too many hopes, too much on your plate, your brain will go haywire and be like, I can't do any of this. I suck at life and I'm not capable, and it'll just give up and throw in the towel.
Right.
So baby
Exactly.
steps.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, last one. If you could speak directly to someone who has crumbled and given into their temptations for one more drink, drug, or unhealthy behavior, what would you say to them?
Were they wanting to try to recover again? Or like get into recovery again? I would tell them that everybody makes mistakes. It's definite, they're not alone. Everybody has thought about it. I mean, if you don't leave like your NA meeting, AA meeting, group therapies, just a private therapy session with that trigger to want to drink or use, then they're not doing their job properly, So, not, no, we're not perfect. It happens. And the fact that whoever has relapsed is reaching out because they feel so vulnerable and just so ashamed at the fact that they did relapse. That's awesome. That's awesome, because they could have went into hiding, and the people that cared for them they would have possibly never heard from them again. And so I would just be positive. Tell them that they're on the right track, especially since they reached out to somebody that could, help them. And just take it a day at a time. Shit, after you relapse, take it an hour at a time. You don't even realize how bad the quiet can be until you need it, So, yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you for being here. I hate that there's so much shame and such a stigma attached to relapse. And relapse is so frustrating. Yeah, it's so frustrating for not only for the person, but for the friends and families. But it can be so damning to the person who actually relapsed. And so I think we beat ourselves up far worse than anyone could ever imagine after we relapse. And I just want people to know that relapse is not a failure. It's a part of the process. We don't shame people for their cancer coming back out of remission.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yes. So why would we shame someone who has a brain disease, the brain disease of addiction, for having a relapse? And so that is my hope with this episode, is that people can see that there is no shame in relapse and that you can come back even stronger. So thank you for being brave and speaking up about your own experiences. I am so damn proud of you. And I can't wait to see what the future holds. So if this episode resonated with you, you can share, subscribe, share a screenshot on your social stories. Together we can help end the stigma and raise awareness. For more information on our 6-week course about cultivating an abundantly fulfilling life in recovery, you can text COURSE to 806-317-8181. It'll be linked in the show notes. And you can pre-register for the July cohort. So, as always, be kind, be well, and may you find some joy this week. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yes. Love you.